कौसल्या सुप्रजा रामपूर्वा संध्या प्रवर्तते उत्तिष्ठ नरशार्दूल कर्तव्यं दैवमार्गिकम् कौसल्या सुप्रजा रामपूर्वा संध्या प्रवर्तते उत्तिष्ठ नरशार्दूल कर्तव्यं दैवमार्गिकम् उत्तिष्ठ गोविन्द
Let's say that. Okay. Educated people are people our wives happening to me.
Yeah.
That kind of natural curiosity.
Yeah.
That's what I want to understand.
Okay.
Like, I'm trying to understand when you transition into Krishna conscious movement and before that.
Yeah.
So you like the path looks like, right? There must be a starting point and an ending point, I assume.
Not really.
Okay. So how do you
Okay.
So
there is no starting point.
that's yes.
Anyway, big actor. Somebody asked him, a good interviewer said, "What happens when we die?" I thought for a moment, and he said, "People that love it."
We're talking about. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Oh yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
He said,
"We'll take care of that."
He said, "The safe." Yeah.
You got a death sentence,
Yeah.
but he is way out of the death sentence.
Yeah.
If you accept was travel, but it takes some deep conviction. That's what I'm trying to come to. I still don't understand. That dialogue.
Yeah.
He's talking to
Phaedo.
Phaedo. F-A-D-O.
F-A-E-D-O.
More neutral, right?
Phaedo.
Yeah, hypothesis. Okay. But it's not a hypothesis. Hypothesis for a person who doesn't realize it. For a realized person, it's a fact.
We're not smoking, drinking, whatever. So
I think this idea ties to our question of the one you're investigating right now, immortality. And I can understand that personally, right?
So, exactly. So then we realize I'm not the body.
But I thought that Krishna consciousness is like when you realize, when you reach the mukti, realization.
Okay, when talking to a guy in the prison, talking about getting out.
What I like to do is, at least my hope is that we'll have like a natural conversation, you share your experience.
Natural conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say that a lot of people interested in spirituality go into temple, they are curious about what is God, why we have to do this and that, what is the purpose of this. So natural, it's not intensely philosophical, just like a common people with common like life struggles and natural questions. They're not even trying to ask the question, right? Whatever the question naturally comes when they're in trouble, like why God, why it's happening to me. Like that kind of natural curiosity. That's what I want to understand myself. And I think when people listen to this, hopefully, I hope that they'll get some answers from our conversation.
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, 4 kinds of pious people approach me.
4 kinds of biased people?
Pious.
Like people who are devotees.
No, pious. Pious? What English word?
P-I-O-U-S?
Yeah.
What's the definition?
It's interesting because in American English, girls used to be named piety or chastity. In Spanish, they still use it. But our American English has become so what's the word? Immoral. Whatever. Amoral.
Pious means immoral?
No, pious means having. In Sanskrit, the word would be punya.
Okay.
And these are someone is pious if they have done. What's the word? Moral activities.
Spiritually inclined.
Yeah. But it's kind of specific. It's interesting. It's kind of common word in that sense, in terms of theological sense.
So you're saying there are 4 kind of pious people, at least
people who have some background of good deeds.
Okay.
Morally.
Good karma, let's say.
But good karma in some way, in the sense maybe for sense gratification. But this is good deeds in terms of character. Auspicious activities, giving charity, helping other people, this kind of things.
So people did.
I said that.
He did mention that. People who already accumulated, let's say, good karma.
Okay.
Can we say that?
Well, because good karma, sometimes we think that means for sense gratification, going to heaven, become Indra, and enjoy life, drink nectar with the gods, and these kind of things.
So what is karma then?
Karma is action and reaction in terms of developing material bodies. The material bodies can be in Brahmaloka, they can be with the sages in Maharloka, they can be next with the Indraloka. There's, fighting the devils and, all these very heroic things. So they can be on our level on the earth, and below them they are, places where people are reformed for their bad activities and so on like that. But this is all the Jagat, Jagat Samsara. The universe of these reactions.
Okay, so maybe what I would like to, you asked about the audience, right?
Yeah.
So what I want to, I think a lot of people are not familiar with these concepts.
Yeah.
Like Intraloka,
Yeah.
even some people may not even know Intra. I'm talking about even people who may born and grow up in Hindu tradition in America. Even like some people in India, Bhakti tradition is they go to temple nearby and they pray, they know a few things. All they know is that I got to go pray to God, and it'll take care of me. They have that faith, but they may not know anything in Bhagavad Gita. I don't even know there's a book called Bhagavad Gita. Majority of the Hindus in India, I would assume that. So what I like to do is I want to keep our discussion the reference to those terms which may not be relevant to some of the common people. A little more objective. Right. Same idea. Secular.
Okay.
We can reference this, but the idea, I want to present this in a secular framework. Same idea come from, let's say, religious framework. As much as possible, right?
That's fine.
Yeah, that way, I feel like you don't have to know that particular religious framework to understand, what is life, what is consciousness, what is mind, and what happens.
My own particular, where I work, has been like world classical literature, which includes Shakespeare.
You're a professor, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
What you were?
World classical literature.
That's what. So you were in the college?
Ricardo. I am professor at Causa Sonoris at Ricardo Palma University in Lima, Peru. But then also we have a North American Institute for Oriental Classical Studies, and then I'm co-founder. We've been going for, since 1914 or something. No, 2004, so 20 years.
So you were working as a professor before you become a sannyasin, I guess?
No.
Or you were doing both together?
Yeah, but basically, basically since about 1974, I haven't worked.
Okay, so you became a
technically, as far as the government's concerned, I haven't worked, but I've been a volunteer, doing volunteer work for non-profit corporations, educational and religious. And so I'm a volunteer worker for non-profit educational and religious corporations.
I see. So when you were, I'm trying to understand when you transitioned into Krishna conscious movement and before that. So what age were you?
Okay. Since I was a little child, I was interested in religion.
Okay.
So what we're talking about is the reincarnation, which is a very popular topic.
Right.
Some people, of course, say
that's mystery for all of it. Even mystery for me. I don't know a lot about it. A lot of people believe. A lot of people. I've seen what is it? Near-death experiences. People YouTube videos I'm seeing. They
child prodigies, little children who can play entire symphonies and past life regressions.
We'll get to that. So you got interested in you have a natural curiosity on.
I was born on Guam at the end of World War II. My parents were there in 1948, and I came back and grew up where my family had been pioneers in Arizona. And then pretty much after that, my friend were looking in government contracts. And so then I grew up in Southern California, the 1950s and everything else. Very interesting. Beginning of Hollywood and all this kind of stuff. Very interesting. But then the smog started to get to my lungs, so my father then moved us up to Sacramento, California. And basically I was there from high school. And I was very interested from a young age in, religiosity and, my parents would drop my brother and sister and myself off at church, but within the first few months they didn't want to go. So at 6 years old, they would drop me off, and I would, very interested. And then I was reading a wide variety of literature, and stuff. And then the university, but about that time, science, after World War II, science was king. Science was going to go to the moon and all this kind of stuff.
Industrial Revolution, right around the time, science people started seeing the real, starting difference in people's lives, right? All that Industrial Revolution happened.
Well, the Industrial Revolution back about maybe 1750 or something. That's what it's classified. When people started making machines to make cloth and that kind of stuff.
Vietnam was 1950, so I'm 200 years off. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically electronics
Okay.
and atomic energy, those two things really became prominent during World War II. Electronics and
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I started electrical engineering, but that was really limited. Okay, so I changed to biological engineering. It was doing surgery on rats and that kind of stuff. And that was also very mechanistic. So in finally I had to graduate. So I graduated in 1970 with the first place prize in psychology from the University of California.
Psychology. You majored in psychology.
Phi Beta Kappa, with minor studies in biology and electrical engineering. Yeah.
You mentioned psychology.
Yeah, no, I started in electrical engineering, which means I took quantum mechanics and a Cal, first class scores. I had a technician class, radio Federal Communications Operator's license, really pushing academically. But I could see, my mentor said it is very mechanistic.
Right.
Okay, and then the whole United States was coming in contact with Asia at that time, for the Vietnam War. So many yogis were coming, and there was just like a whole broader view than mechanistic idea, molecular atomic theory will explain everything. And so limited, then I changed to biological engineering and did surgery on rats and did upper division mammalian physiology. Yes, it was a good investigation of physical sciences, life sciences, and that was also mechanistic. So then I changed to psychology. It'll be my third year, and then caught up on everything else. So I graduated in psychology, bachelor's degree, but with the minor studies in biology and electrical engineering.
So you heard about Freud, Jung, and Adler, and
and especially Carl Jung.
Carl Jung.
Yeah, Jungian psychology is
German psychology.
Swiss.
I always mix German and Switzerland. All right.
Yeah.
They actually have a Carl Jung center in downtown.
We did a whole program there.
I see. I've been there once or twice.
We did a 2-hour video.
Oh, nice.
Two cameras.
Okay.
Mike lapel mics.
I see.
No, it's very nice. The person there, one of the directors, is from Argentina.
Okay.
And so we had a very, very nice.
Interesting. I don't want a perspective, but yes.
No, it's nice.
Yeah.
Because we're working with people like that.
Right.
So then I headed to New York, to Chicago, Northwestern University for the doctorate program. And my mentor was president of the American Psychological Association, Donald Campbell. And he said, this is a career track. You're not going to be able to do anything creative until you're 45 years old. Oh, God. He says, if you have any manly qualities, you'll get out and go to Asia. Sleep under the bushes a few nights and
go on adventure.
Yeah, try and just go and investigate this stuff. If you don't find anything, well, you can always come back and just get a car or get a wife, get a house.
Right. You can go back to that. You can go back to the life.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, then I did. I tried it out. I got a first degree black belt in Okinawan karate.
In California?
Well, actually, it was in California.
Okay.
Dojo there with the style. And I learned a lot about prana. Tremendous amount about prana then. Actually.
Oh, they teach you part of that martial art?
Well, it's called chi in martial arts, but it's the same as prana. It's exactly
the same word. Chi means
the flow. Yeah. Okay. And some other things. And then finally, I met A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami.
So you met him?
Yeah. Especially I was reading his literature and stuff, and then, he's personally present in his books. Yeah.
Where did you meet him?
Well, in his books, literature.
Okay. Have you personally met him?
No, this is personally. No, I mean, it's the fact. That was one thing that's different. Different about it is when you're reading his books, it's not ink on paper. It's a direct manifestation. You can realize that and stuff. The potency is there and so on. Very interesting. But then physically, he came to San Francisco times, and I attended his lectures and a few things like that. When I was initiated, Prabhupada already had, I think, about 1,000 disciples.
Which year was this?
1974.
74. Wow. Okay, that's literally 50 years ago. Right.
But he had many very senior disciples, Dayananda Das, Hansaduda, different people who'd been traveling with him and everything else. And he was attracting very, very potent, high-class people. And so, I would...
When you say high-class people, like well-educated people? Like, what do you mean?
Some were very well-educated. Others were, for example, Hansaduda, a person that I was a disciple. His father had one of the biggest, dinner clubs in Berlin. Beautiful shows and everything else, and so forth and so on. So very, very well established with so many employees and everything else. But then World War II came. And of course, Germany lost everything. So he lived through the Second World War, being refugees, and one of his brothers dying of cholera, and then they somehow or other migrated to New York.
Okay.
So he had this very much, survival type communist. So he was one of the first people to pioneer, Krishna consciousness consciousness in Russia. For that, bringing books in and that kind of things, you basically had to risk your life.
So maybe it's a good starting to talk about, maybe segue into...
We're already recording this, right?
Yeah, we are, yes. Yes. What we'll do is we'll edit this, right?
Exactly.
You know how that magic works.
Exactly.
So we don't have to worry about it. Yeah. We'll edit it out at a later
That's
stuff.
what I'm thinking now. Okay,
Yeah. It's good, all good? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think maybe like for viewers, right?
Okay.
Like, so I think we need to kind of make this a little more structured and ordered.
Okay.
Maybe I will start with Hare Krishna movement.
Okay.
And the goal is said to be attaining Krishna consciousness, right? There's something goal for, is that what is this Krishna conscious movement?
Okay.
The path looks like, right? There must be a starting point and an ending point, I assume.
Not really.
Okay. So how do you explain it? How do you explain it if someone asks you, okay, I have this organization, right?
We are immortal, right? We are immortal. That means we've always existed and we always will exist.
Okay.
So there is no starting point.
I see what you mean, right? So that is the underlying principle or foundational beliefs in many different Hindu faiths.
Many different cultures.
But if you take somebody who's outside of or any child growing up and he's just beginning into adulthood or in college, and if someone tells him,
and his father is a South Indian Brahmin, memorized all the Vedas. Okay,
we can add that to the mix, right?
Or he comes to an African, a traditional African view, or Peruvian Andes mountains. I mean, still you're going to find a lot of cultures, which do not have our point of view.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm saying hypothetically, if you take a common individual who doesn't have a lot of religious background,
okay,
he grew up with a tradition where he's been told that we're immortal, and he goes to funeral, he sees the TV, people are dying, and people buried, and he also has a fear of death and all that. It's natural for a common average individual. If someone were to tell him we're immortal,
not immoral.
So that's totally different. Immortal. He's not going to simply take that. That has to be explained in a certain way. If I were that person and ask you, it doesn't make sense to me. I see people dying. I went to a funeral last week. I see people dying, getting buried. I don't see anybody actually. It's not part of normal life. People come back and say, how do you explain?
No, right? You invite them to go in this restaurant and they think they're different people on certain levels.
Right.
If there's a squirrel sitting outside, you don't say, hey buddy, come here, I gotta talk to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's no logical way you can convince them. That's what you mean to say. Is it something that has to be experienced?
There are different levels of development. That's one thing that the Vedas give so much about is, from different species of life, and out of the material world, after that, from spiritual life, there's so much different varieties of development. And you can begin to see, okay, I'm here. I can see that head like that, and I can see behind like that, but basically I have a level of development.
Right.
So some people go just, I am this body, like this is Anamaya, Manamaya, describing Carl, what's his name? Maslow?
Maslow's self-actualization.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing as in the Vedas. He's describing what he's experiencing. People have different levels of development. What's one topic we can talk about?
Sure, yeah. So if I pick on that, what I understood, right? Let's say conversation is helpful. That's why I love talking to experts. It's all personally enriching. So if we take that, you have a pyramid. The idea is that you start here and you go, right? So there are things visible or understandable or perceivable or true. For here may not be true for people below that pyramid, right? As you rise above, then you gain insights and experiences through work, thinking, practice, others.
Things that happen to you.
Right. What happened in your life. I understand that. That's why there's various levels of mental ability. Right? That's why we have professors and students. Apparently students know that the professor knows more. Therefore they come and ask, right? So then can we say, answer this question, how do you help me, convince me why we are immortal? The answer may be, I cannot just explain to you right now, but maybe you need to go through certain steps. And at some point, it will be true for you. Is that your answer if somebody asks a question? How would you answer that question? I mean, it's easy to say, okay.
What is the question again?
How are we really immortal? How do we know I'm immortal? I can believe it. It's easy for me.
That's a good question.
I can believe it. I trust you. I think you're an honest person. Therefore, whatever you're telling must be true. Therefore, I'm going to believe it. But still, I don't know though. But if I want to know? First, not as a belief.
Yeah.
I'm immortal. How do I know? What is the way for that? Or how do you...
So now we're starting?
Yes. I don't know myself.
Okay.
This is my personal question, actually.
No, this is so we can. It's like some blind men. They've never seen an elephant or had experienced an elephant. They heard the elephants coming to the circus. Have you heard this analogy?
I have.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very popular one.
So one person touches one side of the elephant, one person touches the ear. And so this question about what happens when you die. Keanu Reeves, John Wick. Keanu Reeves, the actor.
Yeah, I know him. He's in Matrix.
Yeah, and he was also the John Wick series of one.
Yes.
Anyway, big actor. Somebody asked him, a good interviewer said, what happens when we die? I thought for a moment, and he said, people that love us will miss us.
Yes, that we can subscribe to. We've seen it.
I know, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
there's no question on that. Instantly recognizable, acceptable.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Right.
So one nice discussion of this topic of are we immortal or not, very, very classical, fundamental to all Western philosophy, and completely parallel to Oriental, Vedic philosophy, Bhagavad Gita, is the last dialogue of Socrates.
Before he drank the poison.
Okay. Yeah, it's called the Phaedo, that dialogue. Okay. And Socrates was a revolutionary hippie guy, running around in Athens. And Athens' thing was, follow the structure, get your diploma, get a good wife.
Against establishment.
Become a CEO of something, whatever. It was like...
It's different.
That was very, in the modern world. And
kind of rebel.
Become socially responsible and become this thing. Okay. But Socrates was coming along and just, hanging out in the marketplace and talking to whoever he wanted to and sleeping here and there. And he was asking, his thing, like one of the most famous things was, the unexamined life is not worth living. Same thing in the Vedas, the Tato Brahma Jignasa. We're all going to die. Albert Camus, the same thing, we're all going to die. What's all the prizes and things worth? And it's natural for a human being. We'll try and hide it and not think about it, but you realize, So, people like Albert Camus and Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita do like...
Albert Camus is a French philosopher?
He's a Nobel laureate.
He's from France, I believe.
France, yeah.
Right, okay.
They very much stimulate when you read the books and stuff.
I've seen some of his YouTube videos.
So anyway, but there's one of the most famous professors from Harvard is Alfred North Whitehead.
Okay.
Bertrand Russell.
But he
was his guru.
Bertrand Russell's guru.
Yeah.
The English
He's British, but then he moved to America and then became a professor.
What's his name again?
Alfred North Whitehead.
He's not a psychologist?
Philosophy.
He's not a psychologist.
Well, it kind of no, he's not a psychologist.
Okay. So what did he say?
His point was along the same lines. I was talking about it now. He's going to be 77 years old.
No, we're talking about it. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I got it. Yeah. He said,
we'll take care of that.
He said, the safest way to characterize all Western philosophy is to say that the whole thing is a footnote to Socrates. Yeah. After that, Immanuel, Kant, everybody else, Nietzsche, they're all, basically in many ways building on Socrates' original ideas and so on. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Even Christianity will be, will be tied in there.
But Socrates' time is after Christ's time, right?
No, before Christ.
It gotta be, I mixed it up.
No, maybe 200 years or something.
Okay, so the Christ comes after Socrates. Okay, so you're saying the whole Western philosophy is a footnote to Socrates' ideas. Here, what does footnote mean?
Socrates was asking about what is good, what is right, what is wrong, what is
moral
justice. Yeah. But in the Phaedo, so anyway, he was creating all these things in people's lives and making them ask questions about getting a job, getting a beautiful wife, getting a car, or a chariot, a horse.
What about the society, right? The world mind.
You find here the position in society. We still see this.
Right, because that's what we see. As a child, we grew up, we see what our parents do, what we go to school, we learn the way to speak, the way to dress, even like the way people dress, even the way they talk, even their walk. And so everything comes from outside.
Yes, keeping up with the Joneses.
Right. It happens still at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
In future it will happen.
It always happens.
Right.
But anyway.
So Socrates, you're saying an exception.
Well, and there's many of them.
You're saying the very foremost.
Socrates is one of these guys who's coming along and trying to shake people up out of their civilized,
the structure of conditioning, we can say.
Okay. And this is not going over so well with the. It's like the people coming and turning their children into hippies. They're supposed to be going to college to getting their diplomas and taking care of me when I'm old. Yeah.
Okay, so they're against Socrates because, but what he's teaching is against the established norms of the time. Right. Therefore, they see him as
Therefore, they wanted to get rid of him.
Right.
So what they did, they had a trial, which is also very, very famous, and they accused him of perverting the youth away from
corrupting the youth.
Perverting.
Corruption,
perverting, taking him away from worshiping the demigods.
Did they give an example? Just curious.
Okay, Okay, yeah, you're supposed to give so much sacrifice to Zeus, to Indra, to Neptune, so you get this certain good result. You should worship Athena, so you get a good education. You should worship Saraswati.
So this is speaking as superstition.
Well, that was
For that time, right? Now it's very obvious to people. Almost everybody in the Western world and Eastern world will accept that those are all really superstitions.
I would say industrialized world, because Africa is also a Western world. Yeah, South America is also a Western world. But this is the industrialized society.
I like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't making the distinction. I learned that from you. Yes, makes sense. Right. So that is the accusation against Socrates. Basically, he's breaking away from the norm because he's thinking he's not conditioned, or he's not. He started thinking himself, I guess. He started asking questions.
I think we need to So anyway, the trial was there, and the idea was basically rigged. Okay, and the result was, and Socrates was just, he knew it. He was just expressing his ideas, taking the opportunity. You're guilty. So the penalty is you should drink hemlock and die, or leave Athens and never come back.
That's really, like, when I heard about the story long back, what really stuck with me is he had an option to save his life, but he chose not to. I mean, how many people we know like that in this world?
Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad, what's his name, Lao Tzu.
Okay, so I'm counting with one hand.
Confucius, Buddha, Saint Francis of Assisi.
But nobody tried to kill him and gave him an option for that. I'm talking about, you are in trouble. You're going to die. You got a death sentence. But here is a way out of the death sentence. If you accept these conditions, you can save your life. I'm talking about that scenario. I would think 99.9999% of the time, people will accept, try to save their life. Compromise.
If you haven't watched Rambo #3.
I watched Rambo, I don't remember the whole thing. So, but it takes some deep conviction. That's what I'm trying to come to. I still don't understand. People will accept, try to save their life. Compromise.
If you haven't watched Rambo #3.
I watched Rambo, I don't remember the whole thing. So, but it takes some deep conviction. That's what I'm trying to come to. I still don't understand. That you must know some truth.
One perspective here. Okay, so that's how the Phaedo starts. He's in the prison.
The Phaedo is, again, help me out.
It's the last dialogue. Of Socrates.
Okay.
There are many about ethics and morality in the trial. And Phaedo is where he's in the prison, and there's a possibility that the decision will be overturned on appeal. But that's not happening. And then at this time, his students are there.
Who was he talking?
About maybe 6-8 students.
So he's talking his students. Okay, let's leave there. Okay.
And the ladies, he sent them away so they wouldn't be crying.
Oh, Phaedo was not there. Phaedo comes.
I'm not sure where he was involved.
Did Phaedo live at the same time Socrates?
Yeah, he was one of the students.
Do they know each other?
Yeah, he was one of the students.
Was he there?
He might have been there, or else that's the whole thing. He may have been asking Phaedo, who was there, what happened.
Phaedo is the person?
Yeah.
Okay, so Phaedo is a student. Socrates talking Phaedo, the last
he was may have been one of the...
Okay, so before he's drinking hemlock.
Yeah.
Okay, hemlock?
Hemlock. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and anyway, that's all the questions you're talking about come up, about why not just run away, and all these kind of things. And then finally, Socrates basically says, anybody who's a philosopher, ideal man, would have philosophically inclined.
The lover of wisdom, that's what philosopher means, I guess. Yes.
Would as soon as he understands that we're not this body and everything else, would just commit suicide.
I missed that. So the last dialogue, he's talking to
Phaedo.
F-A-D-O?
F-A-E.
F-A-D-O. I'm very sure.
I know
that was the pronunciation. Phaedo. Let me remember that. So Phaedo, before drinking hemlock, and he's telling his student, Phaedo.
Maybe five or six.
Yeah, so he's telling Phaedo that we are immortal.
Okay, so Phaedo is here, everybody else, and they say, Socrates, just come away with us.
Save your life.
We'll go to a different place like
and live peacefully, whatever,
Then Socrates is saying...
That's natural.
Yeah, but Socrates is saying that once you're a philosopher and you really realize that there is a next life, and it's going to be better, then obviously, why would I maintain this body? If I told you have an old junky car, causing you problems, everything else, and I say, hey, why don't you get a new car is waiting for you, then the most natural...
So Socrates, I want to put in the direct words, right? Beyond doubt. Okay. So Socrates telling Phaedo, his student, before he already made up his mind he's going to die. He
made up his mind he's going to
drink the hemlock. He's not going to choose the option of Red Bull, right? He's taking I'm learning from you. You're saying, I know I'm going to live after this body is gone.
Yes.
Therefore, there's no point in compromising.
Yes.
And save my life, compromise principle, save the body, and continue to live. If I take this hemlock, the implication of that, I still live, only the body dies. So that means he's saying we are immortal. then.
Yeah.
Did he use that word?
Yeah.
You say that we are immortal.
Yeah.
Philosophers know that.
Yes.
Therefore, you don't know that as a student. You're maybe still learning.
Well, yeah,
He didn't say that like that, but
No, they did exactly. That's why it goes on for about 25 pages after that, because they say, well, okay, Socrates, we've been discussing this, but now it's not like a theoretical question. You know, if I have a cup of poison here, okay, and after this, you know, I tell you, what subtle point is, he says that a philosopher would just take the poison and die and go to heaven anytime. Once he realizes it, why should he stay around?
But hold on, this is good. So you say you go to heaven?
Yeah.
So there's a belief in heaven those days?
Yes, Zeus, Indra, Varuna, what's it called? There's Zeus, Jupiter, Pluto, and Neptune.
Right. So the Pluto Neptune is like we named the planet after them, so it's confusing.
Yeah.
But so does that mean Socrates saying he's believing in those myths existed at the time, or are you saying I did my philosophy,
Yeah.
I did my research,
Yeah.
I did my self-introspection. Through my own research, I realized I'm immortal.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm not afraid to die. What is he saying?
Not only I'm not afraid to die, but I want to die.
Because it makes no difference. Living
No,
or death.
it doesn't make any difference. It's better.
He's saying death is better.
Yeah, if you've got a junky old stupid car costing you a fortune, uncomfortable to drive, and you can go ahead and get a new car, then it's not to say, well, okay, I'll give this car up. It's that, hey, you know, I just get rid of this.
So does that mean like you believe that I'm already old? What was
No, he
it?
wasn't that old. I don't know.
You said junkie or...
Oh, maybe he was like 52 or something.
Okay, not that old, sorry.
No,
It's not that junky.
Quite healthy.
Right, so the running car, good running car.
Well, in comparison.
Right. I want to understand. So he's around 50 something.
Yeah.
So his idea is that I will live past, I will survive the death of my body.
This stupid junky car I have will go on sometimes like that.
Right. But is it not the same idea in Christianity? It
Yeah.
attributed to Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus will live after the death of his body.
Yeah.
You see any relationship to
Well,
it?
yeah, it's the same. Jesus Christ is talking about, you know, a spiritual world. Muhammad's talking about a spiritual world. Different incarnations, different Buddhas. But Amitabha Buddha is talking about Socrates and that.
So that's good. I'm glad that we connect to Western philosophy, the idea of immortality. That idea exists in Christianity.
Spiritual world.
All spiritual world. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, right, Hinduism, Jainism, maybe,
And
Sikhism.
Socrates.
Those are all pretty much major religions I can think
A
of.
lot of
So it's a very ancient idea.
Yeah.
So Socrates lived. I think Vedas probably before Socrates.
Oh, yeah.
So this immortality existed even before Vedas. So before Socrates, the idea of immortality, Vedas.
As far as you can go back in any cultural tradition, there's an idea of personal immortality. Gilgamesh or anybody else.
Okay. So the Vedas is older than Socrates. So it's like a very ancient idea. I'm pretty sure.
In the Phaedo, when Socrates is describing the soul and reincarnation, he says there is a very ancient doctrine said that all dead souls are living souls and all living souls are dead souls. So he's taking it from India.
But those days there is no connection, right? There's
Oh,
so far
definitely there
apart.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Silk Road.
But is that accepted in other?
Oh, sure.
Within this, is it?
Google the Silk Road.
That's it. I understand, but
Yeah.
you seem to suggest that Socrates may be influenced by Vedic ideas.
Yeah.
Is that in the scholar community? Is that an accepted or substantiated?
As far as I know, and I deal with scholars and Harvard and every place else,
Okay.
that if you make a suggestion like that, what they would say was, yes, there was contact between, you know, the Mediterranean societies of the Egyptians, the Hittites, and the Greeks and stuff, and yeah, they had camel caravans going back and forth. They were bringing back perfumes and spices and silk, and it was going all the way to China. And so, yeah, some people were traveling, and some.
Or is it a conjecture? That's what I'm saying. Is it established? Is it just again based on beliefs, conjectures, or certain people putting together, making like a...
Who wrote Hamlet? I mean, you start looking.
Oh, you're saying okay? That itself, there's no proof.
Did Shakespeare even exist?
Right.
I mean, there's so much history.
Have you heard of Thirukkural in Tamil Nadu? Thirukkural?
Yeah.
This is considered one of
A
those
little bit, but very little.
treaties from Tamil Nadu.
Yeah.
Comparable to Gita and
Yeah.
Bible. People questioning Thirukkural is one person or multiple person, or at least same way. Because one intelligent person cannot do this.
Yeah. Was it one person? Was it a mythical? Yeah, it's just his story becomes. Some things are very highlighted and brought down very specific.
Okay, so I say that there's reasonable.
Basically, yeah, there is reasonable. Generally, scholars would accept. Yeah, you can make a case that that there was influence from Asia, from India and subcontinent, all the way to the Greek culture.
Okay, so let's get back to this idea of immortality, right? That's what the thread we are weaving around. Right, so we established that in West culture, Socrates believed. He must have literally not only believed, he has so much conviction he's willing to die for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to point out. You have to be so certain to willing to die for an idea, or truth. For him, it has to be a truth. It can't be a belief.
He's not going to die for the idea.
Or leave his body, let's say that.
Yeah, he's going to die because he has an idea.
So he didn't believe he's going to die, but he's willing to leave his body for it.
Yeah, just, I mean, if you talk to somebody from a certain culture, you can't live without drinking. I mean, they could raise up in a culture where it's just like, they think that people that don't drink are like some kind of
that's a habit problem.
Crazy or something. No, it's just their culture.
Culture habituates to certain habits.
Have you met people who cannot pass through in the morning without smoking a cigarette?
I can say I've seen people who are addicted to cigarettes.
Yeah, and they literally cannot evacuate in the morning without smoking.
I did hear that. People tell me that.
Yeah.
At least I have a friend. You maybe remember. You maybe remember a friend who told me that.
You become Socrates. Okay, so then the students say, "Okay, Socrates, you're thinking," and his point is that any philosopher who has realized this fact, by experiment.
That's where I'm coming. Belief versus realization.
We're going to get there.
Right.
Investigated it and everything else, and he was convinced of it. Hey, he would just commit suicide right away. He'd sit down and meditate and not drink water, and within a few days his body would be finished and he would be dining with the gods. Okay, but he says it's not permitted. It's not your body. You can't just send it to the junkyard. It says that for official use only on the car. So this is Christian idea, the same thing. You're here for a certain destiny. You're supposed to use it properly. Okay, so you can't just go around, finishing it off and go to heaven. But he said when the opportunity comes, okay. So
that's what Socrates says.
He said, so here's an opportunity. The court said this and that, and it's okay. So, and of course, they were freaking out because now he's creating a new problem. Mm-hmm. They thought he will just go away, but he's not just going to go away. He's going to go ahead and become a martyr, and all of our children will become more dedicated to him. Mm-hmm. Oh God, this guy's a problem.
Right.
So then Socrates, then his students are looking at each other, and Socrates, and they say, but I mean, can you really be sure about this? Mm-hmm. Right? Okay, that's your question now. The next thing.
But that's what I want to shine focus light on realization. You used the word realization.
So you being one of the Greek students right here.
Yes.
Question up. Yeah. So the entire Phaedo then goes on with these questions and answers about this point. And you'll find exactly the same arguments in the Vedas about the immortality of the soul.
Okay, so
and the process for realizing.
Okay, so what I heard is being observing student here.
Okay.
What I heard is that Socrates said, if you are a philosopher, if you went through process of whatever the philosophy entails, seeking wisdom, right, and you realized it, then you will willingly, enthusiastically
about dying,
let go of your body, because you know your soul is immortal.
And it's better.
It's even better.
As soon as I
is in another world? Huh? So when you let go of the body, you born again in the same world, or different?
He talks about that. The Bhagavad Gita talks about that. And really, no, we don't want to be born in this material world. Mm-hmm. We want to be born in the spiritual world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's interesting. So the Western concept, right? So let's touch upon the same idea in Christianity, right? What does Christianity say about immortality? I know Jesus is believed, because Jesus is thought to be the Son of God, therefore he's immortal. In Christianity, we believe that everyone is immortal, or only like God is immortal?
Encyclopedia Britannica, if you go to Christianity, I think it says there are 10,500 different divisions, sects.
10,500.
Different divisions.
All the New Testament together?
Christianity. So different Christians have different ideas.
Mm-hmm. So maybe let's focus on the Protestants.
Methodists, Baptists, Protestants,
Catholics. Yeah, so the major, everywhere we see churches.
The general cosmology for Christians is that we die, and then and we go to heaven. For good, bad, we go to hell.
Either way, people say what you did, right?
But some of them believe that right after the body's finished, it goes back into the earth.
So that means in a way, it's indirectly believing you still survive the death, because otherwise you cannot go to heaven.
Yeah, you
personally.
Yeah, you're different than the body.
Right.
And the body is a carrier.
So that means even in Christianity,
some Christians, a lot
believe that you survive the death. That's why heaven and hell is there. You survive. I think the same thing in Islam. Then they say that you have to do good because you're going to survive the death, and you may end up in hell. You get trouble. Therefore, don't do it. Right? That's good.
Same in the Vedas. The same in Judeo-Christian.
All right. So that means this idea of immortality is very prevalent in probably all over the world, all over the map, different parts of the world, right? All over the YouTube, right? So, but that's fine, right? Again, let me come back to the realization part. That's what I'm stuck. I hear this story.
The Gladiator movie. What's his name? Very famous movie. He's fighting.
I know the movie, but I don't know the actor.
Well, but in the end, he dies and goes to heaven. His daughter and his son and wife are waiting for him.
Right.
And right from the very beginning, they're talking about.
Right. So this myth is there for unrealized souls.
Okay.
I want to differentiate.
Let's call it hypothesis.
Or hypothesis. I like that. More neutral, right? Yeah, hypothesis.
Okay.
But it's not a hypothesis. It's a hypothesis for a person who doesn't realize it. For a realized person, it's a fact and truth.
Hypothesis is something you're going to investigate.
Investigate, right? From a person who are unenlightened or still becoming a philosopher or going through the philosopher process.
Investigating.
You need to start with a hypothesis, right?
Yeah.
You cannot reject it, then you're not even going to try it.
The little child has a hypothesis that if I touch fire, it's going to hurt.
Right, then he's going to test it.
Yeah, you test it.
Then it becomes a fact.
And if you're really stupid, you try it again.
Then you no longer ask the question. If you put my finger on the fire, is it hurt? You will not even ask the question because you realized it.
Exactly.
Right. So that's yeah. So that's where I'm coming in. I haven't realized.
Bring the poison.
Right. So I haven't realized.
That'd be good for your channel, right? The end of the poison.
Ladies and
memes. I'm condemned.
I'm ready to take hemlock.
Me too. Who was here? Okay.
So let's go back to our hypothetical student.
Okay, and Socrates and the Phaedo.
No, I'm talking about even before we started with this question, right? There's our student coming up normal life, conditioned normal life.
Okay.
He knows he goes to McDonald's or goes to movies. He watches a Gladiator movie.
Graduated from the University of California, has a master's degree in software engineering.
The farmer, you, yes.
And married to, what's her name? Has a car, has payments on the car. Yeah.
Right. That's the life for 99% of the people.
What kind of entertainment does he watch?
Netflix nowadays.
Netflix. Yeah.
YouTube. I don't know.
What kind of movies?
All the latest movies, I guess.
What are they?
I don't know what's out there. Spider-Man.
Okay, we got it.
All right. All the Spider-Man series, Disney series.
Spider-Man is talking about mystical powers. Yeah, and you see all these things. At least they.
Yes, special power.
Yeah, because this is the
superheroes, right? All superheroes.
Yeah, the individual.
He transcends the personal limitation.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. That's another way to look at it.
This is everywhere, every single culture. As soon as you get to the human life, you begin to think that, there are, mystical or superpowers, and I'm going to get them through science, or I'm going to get them.
There's a way to get it.
Yeah.
And some people accidentally got it. That's Spider-Man.
Accidentally.
And there is a method to get it.
His enemy got it through work.
Right. He worked for it.
Yeah.
Right. But let's keep the thread.
Okay.
Right. So this hypothetical student in Jung terminology, Carl Jung, the world mind, right? The world mind. He talks about the world mind, right?
I forgot what he called it.
Collective unconscious?
Collective subconscious.
Subconscious.
He didn't like the word unconscious.
I didn't know that.
You did it probably.
Okay, collective subconscious rules or whatever, but no escape from that for anyone, right? Unless you go through the process.
Yeah, but I mean, it's ruling over it exists.
Exists.
It's just like City of Houston exists.
Gravity pulls you.
City of Houston exists.
Right. Deep down, we don't even know that it exists.
Yeah, some people.
Right. I think, is that what they say in Hindu tradition, Jivatma? Is it comparable to Jivatma?
It would be Paramatma.
Paramatma is the
universal Atma.
Right. That doesn't have.
Jivatma is the individual one, which what Jung would talk about is the individual
unconscious.
Subconscious.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The whole individual subconscious is Jivatma in Hinduism, right? So no escape from this, right? Everyone is influenced by their culture, surroundings, community, right? That's why people are going to go buy a house and pay top dollars to buy a house because they think that you're better people, you have better influence. It works, doesn't work, but that student wouldn't know anything about philosophy, wouldn't know anything about Socrates, didn't know anything about Phaedo, he doesn't know anything about Krishna consciousness.
About yoga.
None of that. Or he knows only what he come from the movies.
Even religion. Because there are a lot of very potent Christian organizations around now, Christian societies that are following rules and regulations and living the same way as we do.
Like what is this? I mean, Amish,
Francesca. There are many Christian orders. St. Francis has an order for monks, an order for nuns, and an order for married. And then they follow certain rules and regulations.
There's also, in a way, like a subconscious, right? You've been fed into that idea. You happen to born in some tradition.
Yeah.
For example, I think I am Hindu because my parents were Hindu. I come from India. If I were born in America, I would have been probably Christian. If I were in the Middle East, I would have been Muslim. So what I got, what I think, who I am, or what God I believe is given to me. I didn't choose it myself.
But also you bring it from your previous life. Certain things just attracted,
But that's after the fact it happens. Like,
well, no, as it happens, things are happening, or else you're even looking for them,
Right.
You're little children.
You may be a little skeptic, or you may be.
Carl Jung says nobody is born as a blank slate. Everybody comes in with a
tabula rasa.
Got it, rasta.
Okay. So Carl Jung believes that you don't start with blank slate.
Socrates, same thing.
So that means, where do you inherit that quality? Is it through the genes?
No.
So it's not through the body.
Then again, this is, different people, different perspectives, different things like that. But the Bhagavad Gita is, no, that the Atma is completely different than the body. Just like if I have a frozen sponge, square, green, I can tell you that, no, that there's water in there that can be, there's the ice, proper ethical and moral process can be softened, and then a square sponge can then fit into a round hole, right? Once it's soft, ice on water, and then you start to squeeze it, like doing certain austerities, prescribed this and that, and not smoking, drinking, whatever.
I think this idea ties to our question of the one you're investigating right now, immortality.
Yeah.
This ties to it.
That's the point, because at a certain point, then, we have morality and ethics, which means we have certain rules and regulations. When a guy bails out of his airplane in World War I, German trainer, he said, you're fighting these American guys, these British guys, French guys. He said, but once the pilot is out and coming down in his parachute, you shoot him, I will shoot you. Just don't shoot down a pilot after he's out. So that's like certain things we don't do, and that means that...
Even like back in time, even the wars were like everybody organized on one side, around the other side, they wait for the signal, then they go fight.
And they don't kill a guy who's on the ground.
Right.
So anyways, ethics and morality, pious.
Time, the ethics of their time.
Yeah.
Because that's also
but
changes.
There are also certain things you're going to find all throughout history. What soldiers do and what soldiers don't do. What mothers do and mothers don't. But then next level is...
But again, I would argue...
Next level then is where we start to squeeze the sponge, right? And this is, you find austerities and penances, like every day we do this focus of chanting, controlling the mind, chanting on beads, mental control, physical control. And this allows you then to get the self out of the body, right?
Self means soul?
The water, soul, the Atma. Okay. Then, next step is you can actually heat it, and this is where you start to do severe austerities, highly regulated, highly focused, and then the water becomes steam. And whatever little bit of water is still attached, sponge, doesn't come out squeezing, but in a hot environment like that, it comes until there is absolutely no water left. Body, and it all becomes steam and body.
You're talking about transformation, metamorphosis.
Yes. Physics is all state change.
State change. Simple word, I like that. That's why easy to understand. Butterfly transformation.
Or solid with the gas.
Easy to remember, right? Same object, water becomes ice to water, water to vapor.
Steel becomes solid.
So you're saying the same thing, the person engaging in spiritual practice or philosophy goes through that kind of state change. And that's why Maslow's pyramid we are talking about top bottom. You have different insights, different, so that's where depends on where you are, you have access to certain knowledge, experiences, right? So again, let me go back to the hypothetical student, right? Worldly student, whatever he knows is through popular movies from a student, college, and he asks what is immortal? How do you, you are a Socrates, or you went through already.
Socrates, I can be Socrates.
Yes.
You can be Phaedo.
Yes.
I mean, how many people have done this in the past over the last 2,000 years? So the first argument Socrates gives, you say, well, how can you be sure that the soul is different than the body? The first argument he gives is that the body is gross, made of gross elements.
Material.
Yes.
It's visible, it's sensible.
You
I can touch it, feel it,
smell it,
right.
Squeeze it.
I can destroy it. Right.
Just like a violin is made of, that time, it's made of wood, cat guts, and glue.
That's why you gotta watch our soul when you cross the road.
Yes.
But,
he says, but out of it comes art, poetry, music, all these very, very fine things, love, sentiment, honor.
Ideas.
Well, no, honor, dignity, right?
That's a behavior, right? Or tendency?
No, it's a choice, personal choice.
Yeah, that's a tendency, right?
Well, that's a personal choice. At some point, Rambo told the guy that all of us would like to be someplace else. Poor Christian missionaries.
Or convictions? Can we say conviction?
Personal choice. Fella, those poor Christian missionaries are being harassed by the evil Vietnamese, whatever, and we're mercenaries, and every single one of us would like to be someplace else. But this is what we do.
Right.
So it's soldiers, kshatriyas, honor and dignity, and you make a choice about what you're going to do. Now it's within this mode of passion, within this world like that and stuff, but it raises you up to a level where we just don't do that.
So if I be that student, the average Joe, right?
Now, these are not average Joe. These are guys who are asking the questions and are serious about it. And now, because poison is right there, and now... I'm
not saying Socrates students are average. I'm saying I want to take the role of an average person, and I want to ask you a question on that perspective.
But now, again, as soon as you ask a question, everybody's saying you're not an average Joe. The average Joe never asks. Bhagavad Gita says out of Manushanam Sahasreshu, out of thousands of human beings, most of them don't even ask questions. Budweiser has a commercial. The guy says, why ask?
Why ask why? Why ask why? Don't even ask. Don't listen to people say drinking is bad. Just drink it.
No, and then you forget about everything, right? You become stupid. You could have become absorbed in this. You could become absorbed in that.
Mm-hmm. You let that's
the Bhagavad Gita is saying, out of 1,000 people, only one person comes to this level. I mean, there's 1,000 places around here, and only one place that we're discussing this question. Most people are thinking on the street, do I want to go to Wendy's? Do I want to go to McDonald's? Do I want to go whatever? What's the movie tonight? A boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. Okay.
Yes, because that's what we're exposed to, right? Unless you have a contact of someone. Like that's why I think they executed Socrates, because they worried that their children are getting influenced by somebody like him. So they want their children to be influenced by being ambitious, getting the highest score, getting the car,
temporary pleasures and happiness.
Right, a worldly pleasure and happiness. You want to get a big house, big car, and you want to have a big degree. You want to flash it to the wall. You want to go tell everybody my son is this, my children is that. So that's what they're after. But everybody is an echo chamber in a way. Echo chamber.
Okay.
Because that's what everybody's those values are keep projected to them. Then everybody influenced by that. Then they become an agent of those ideas.
Maybe 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes?
By 6 o'clock.
Okay, got it. So that's good. So quickly, I think
that's the first question they ask. And he says that hey, look, something fine is coming out, so therefore there must be an Atma who occupies the body. The body is made of carbons and atoms and all this kind of stuff.
Is that?
Hang on.
Sorry. Yeah.
So then they come back with their counter argument, and they're
material.
and they're saying, well, they use the argument the same thing. We just take cat guts and what do you call it, wood and this and that. We make a violin, right? And it produces these things made of dead elements. And Socrates says it's a very good argument for getting two things. You're forgetting two things: the violin maker and the artist plays it. Say, that argument's not good, because the elements by themselves, you're talking about, you have to have a violin maker, they have to have a violin.
Sorry to interrupt. I lost my chain of thought. So what we're talking about is, we're talking about body's gross. So soul is subtle.
But it produces subtle things.
So the argument or analogy or metaphor is violin.
That's the argument.
Compared to the body, right? Violin is analogy to the body.
Gross.
Which is made of it. So made of particles, atoms.
Cat guts and wood and glue.
Material, right?
Okay.
So then the question is, yes, that's body, but Socrates is saying you forget the person who uses music out of that.
And the person who made it.
But in a way, if I say that this is a violin body, I can say that my soul is the person who plays the violin.
Driver
of the car. That is invisible. It's not, I cannot touch it, I cannot sense it, I can't even feel it.
Not the gross sense.
So how do we do it? So I think this answers the question of the hypothetical student I'm saying. How do I know I'm immortal? Then I have to know there is a soul which is separate from the body. Descartes, right? Duality. Duality is what body-soul problem, right?
Descartes came to the point of the mind and body. He didn't come to the point of soul.
Oh, mind-body. So you thought that mind and body both dies?
Cogito ergo sum. Think, therefore I am.
Right. So you didn't have any concept of what happens after the death.
He
basically said, while I'm living in this body, mind and body is separate.
I'm not the gross body.
Okay. But whatever that is, I am mind. What did he think? You think he survives the death?
Okay, so then we have...
No, Descartes, did he believe that?
He didn't go beyond that. His thinking didn't go beyond that.
His mind is not the soul.
He just couldn't think about it.
Okay, so he didn't know the soul. That's fine. I was saying like he meant mind and soul on the same level, but it's not. Okay, so in order to prove that I'm immortal, in order to realize that I'm immortal, or at least believe that I accept the hypothesis that it is possible there is a soul separate from gross body, so I want to investigate, right? You want to convince somebody to that point. The answer might be, I think we're coming to the answer here. Answer might be, like you're saying, there's a wide analogy, gross, and yes, you can say that you're forgetting there's something out there which person who uses the violin, who uses music, or asks these questions. So
then we have incarnations, and good people come into prison. They give the prisoners a chance to see what real life is like. Socrates is the analogy of cave, shadow. Real people come in and they see them and they realize
their perception is...
So Jesus Christ comes and he lives right out.
Allegory of cave.
Jesus Christ lives out spiritual life out of us. Muhammad lives it out. And then we can see, and if we see clear enough, we see that, it's not just a spiritualized body, but there's a soul behind the body.
Okay, so this is what I'm asking. Let's say that person who reaches the level of Socrates, or Jesus, or Buddha, or Krishna, right? They know for the fact that there is soul survives death. But for some common person who has no idea of anything, at least to get him started, at least to make him accept that there is a possibility you could be immortal, and therefore at least try to investigate. So then how do I say what pointers I can give him? If I say body's gross, he has to accept it. He knows it. burned himself, he hurt himself, he went to the doctor, he got sick, you know that. But
the next level is going to be Anamaya, Pranamaya, Manamaya, Jnanamaya. It's identical with Karl Maslow and Carl Jung and everybody else. They're saying don't try and push people beyond the level they can realize, or they'll flip out and just fall back down.
Okay, so if I ask you a question, I think it'd be good to finish with this idea. Soul, right? Body, yes, violin, great analogy. I can touch the violin, I can feel it, I can break it. Same way I can break my own body, I can hurt, I can watch it.
You can also control your mind. You can also control your anger. So I'm not my mind. My mind wants to think this, my mind wants to think that. Don't think about that, right?
So how do I, if you have to give me some pointers and maybe connect to some experiences I always have, which could be soul, what would you say to them?
Anger. You see directly, for example, that you become angry and you can do things, you can kill because of anger.
So how that connects to the idea of soul though?
Because then you realize that I can control my mind.
I can be angry,
I can see my mind, I can experience, I don't just let it go, I don't just hop on board and follow it wherever it wants to go.
Right, and I can attest to that personally, right?
So, exactly. So then we realize I'm not body, then we realize I'm not the mind.
Because I have a choice?
I have a choice, I control it. Well, I must be different. And
because I have a choice, therefore I'm soul? Is that what you mean?
Because I'm making a choice.
I have free will.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start trying to seduce this woman at a bar, or I can say, no, I don't want to do that. My mind is thinking about it, my mind likes the idea, my tongue wants to taste something, my mind wants to...
I can lift my hand, I can put it down.
Yeah, and I can also stop my mind thinking about certain things.
Right. But how that true soul exists though?
We're not talking about this. You're talking about having this level, the mental level. Okay, then once you come to the level that I'm not the mind, the next level is I'm not the intellect, which has these perspectives on these things, which is in the Maslow's.
So you're saying first you realize you're not the body, then you realize you're not the mind. To know you're not the mind is you have free will, therefore you're not the mind, because mind doesn't control you, control the mind.
Yeah.
Okay, then you're saying there is a step. Then what would tell me I'm not the intellect?
I can change my perspective. Bhagavad Gita is the whole thing. Krishna conscious Bhagavad. The demoniac perspective is I'm the controller. Ishvara aham bodhi siddham balavan. I'm the controller. I'm the enjoyer. Everything's meant for my satisfaction. It's a certain attitude towards life. Right? Certain attitude.
That's predisposition.
That's the Buddhi perspective.
Buddhi is the intellect, right?
Yes.
Buddhi is Sanskrit word for intellect.
Yes.
Right.
Buddhi Buddha. In English we'll say understanding. Once you get under the mind. Yeah, okay. And some people come that level. But then the next point you realize that also my perspective and attitude is also something I don't have to
not me.
I can become attached from.
Is that the neti method they say in Hinduism?
Well, kind of, yeah.
Is this not the I'm not intellect, I'm not the body, I'm not this?
So finally, when you realize I'm not the Buddhi, not the intellect, then you're out of the material world. And at that point, the positive identification comes. And right from the very beginning, Krishna can incarnate and grab onto a little bit of it. It's okay. If you're in a prison, you got to go through so many things to get freed, right? But that's what I'm aiming for. That's it.
So in a way, our perspective changes as we go through this process, and we realize over the time through certain steps. Call it philosophy, call it tapas, or call it following the Buddha's method or Jesus' method or Krishna conscious method.
It's all the same thing.
Then your realization, you're saying you reach even truly like compared to Maslow's pyramid, when you arrive at the top, you realize you're immortal.
I'm not sure Maslow went that far, but it was like...
Did Maslow go above the mind? Because when my friend asked me a question...
Maslow came to the intellect, which Carl Jung and everybody else, they would just differentiate between the mind.
But my question is, Maslow and Carl Jung, when they talk about top of the pyramid, are they talking about realizing I am immortal, or are they talking about I am satisfied, I got everything I wanted the car, I wanted...
No,
what are they talking about? What's the difference between Maslow's self-actualization and nirvana?
On which day of the week, on which experience they were going through and everything else, at different times and stuff. But basically, I would say Jung's perspective was his about God as a person. He has a very, very nice old citation. It'll come back. But it's basically the same thing, is that it is a question that really has to be answered. Is there a God or not? Is there a God? Is in the spiritual world? Am I his servant? Is there a spiritual world like that? And, you're not going to get it through rituals. You're not going to get it through just thinking about it. But it has to be answered. And, it can be answered. But I haven't got the answer yet. That's almost what he said. It's like... That's
fine. So what I want to get to is, we'll come to the Jung, right? Maslow's pyramid. For example, in Hinduism, right? The ultimate purpose is attaining mukti.
No, mukti is liberation. Coming out of the cave.
Right. Is that not the ultimate goal of... What is the ultimate goal of...
Mukti means getting out of the prison.
So what is the ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness? Is it not same as mukti?
No.
Is higher than mukti?
Mukti means getting out of of prison.
Right. Getting out of Jivatma.
No, you are Jivatma.
Right.
You are Jivatma. The Atma gets entangled in different things.
Is it same as personality?
Yeah.
Right.
In the highest sense.
So what is the highest purpose or point of Krishna consciousness or religious pursuit? If I ask you, what would you say?
That there is no highest point.
But
the highest point is
realizing immortality is the highest point?
The highest point is to always be getting better.
I mean, is that ever stops at some point? So how about Krishna? Is Krishna also when he died, is he trying to get better?
Krishna never dies, but
No, like as a body when he had an incarnation.
Yeah, but his body also. Okay, yeah.
But I thought that Krishna consciousness is like when you reach the mukti realization.
Okay, when talking to a guy in the prison, talking about getting out. Okay, so when we get out, what's the ultimate goal? There is no
You're
goal.
free.
Yeah, you're free. But then but then what do you do?
Then you just live your life free.
Okay, so that's the ultimate goal.
Right. So liberation then, getting out of jail,
Yeah,
getting out of personality.
Yeah, but what does that mean? You get out and I'm going to get a career. I'm going to
you're making choice then. It's not given to you like Jung says.
Yeah.
You're not conditioned. You make your personal free choice.
Yeah.
You knowing very well the consequences because that makes you happy. You do it.
Now you're being forced.
Not forced.
Because I make my choice, therefore I do it because it makes me happy.
Not because you want to prove somebody you're this, you're that.
When you go to the spiritual world, you're doing things not because you're forced, but because you have free will. And I'll do this, I'll do this.
So that's an ultimate.
Yeah.
I can subscribe to that. That everybody should seek. It's so it's so valuable to have that freedom.
Yeah.
Right. But in Maslow's top of the pyramid, what is that?
I can't remember exactly, but his thinking at that point is like where he comes from. When Jung, the same thing. Like
when you self-actualize, what happens?
It's like Jung had a real nice quote. That boy, what was the other guy?
You want to use AI?
No, another guy. The transcendentalist, Thoreau, Emerson,
Walt
Whitman. Walt Whitman said life is spiral. I mean, same women, the same men again and again. Each time higher. Life is a spiral. He says, where does it go? He says, I don't know.
Keep going.
It goes someplace. That's where a lot of them are. They're beginning to get some experiences and
so you're getting better and better and better. Maybe you're becoming more freer and happier and happier.
You see, like, wow, yeah.
That's where it's
so now we're going to go to art someplace.
Thank you. Love meeting you.
My hobby. I hope we can continue this again.